The Zocalo, Mexico City's beating heart, pulsed with a sea of green, red and white. Fireworks painted the night sky, their booms echoing the cheers of the crowd. Claudia Sheinbaum, bathed in the stage lights, beamed. Her voice, though amplified, could barely be heard above the roar. Mexico had elected its first female president. History was made. Sheinbaum, her fist raised in the air, addressed the nation. Her words, measured and strong, spoke of hope and change. A new chapter was beginning. The crowd, captivated, hung onto her every word. This was their moment, a shared victory for women and for Mexico. The energy was palpable. It was a moment of collective euphoria, a release of years of anticipation. But beneath the surface, a current of anxiety ran through the crowd. The task ahead was monumental. Mexico, plagued by violence and inequality, looked to Sheinbaum with a mixture of hope and trepidation. As the fireworks died down and the cheers subsided, a sense of anticipation settled over the Zocalo. The celebration marked not an end, but a beginning. The true test, the arduous journey of governing a nation in turmoil, lay ahead. Sheinbaum, standing tall on the stage, seemed ready to face it head-on. Claudia Sheinbaum, a physicist by training, was no stranger to complex challenges. Her political career, however, was deeply intertwined with that of her predecessor, Andrés Manuel López Obrador. A close ally and confidant, she had served as his environment minister and later as the mayor of Mexico City. Obrador's shadow loomed large. His populist policies, while popular among many, had also sown division. Sheinbaum, inheriting his legacy, faced the daunting task of uniting a fractured nation. Her supporters saw her as a natural successor, someone who could build upon Obrador's achievements. Critics, however, questioned her independence. They saw her as a product of Obrador's movement, lacking a distinct vision of her own. Sheinbaum, acutely aware of these criticisms, needed to assert herself. She had to convince the skeptics that she was not simply Obrador 2.0. The task was not easy. Obrador's influence permeated Mexican politics. Sheinbaum, walking a tightrope, had to balance loyalty with the need to forge her own path. The success of her presidency, many believed, hinged on her ability to step out of her mentor's shadow and become a leader in her own right. Sheinbaum's victory speech was light on specifics but heavy on symbolism. She spoke of continuing Obrador's fight against corruption and inequality. Her words resonated with the crowd, many of whom had benefited from his social programs. The promise of continuity, of stability in uncertain times, brought comfort. Education and healthcare, she declared, would be top priorities. Investment in these sectors, she argued, was crucial for lifting people out of poverty. The crowd, largely composed of working-class families, erupted in applause. These were issues close to their hearts, issues that directly impacted their lives. However, not everyone shared the same enthusiasm. Business leaders, wary of Obrador's economic policies, remained skeptical. Sheinbaum's vague promises did little to assuage their concerns. The markets, too, reacted with caution, adopting a wait-and-see approach. The true test of Sheinbaum's presidency, it was clear, lay not in her words but in her actions. The expectations were high. The people, hungry for change, awaited concrete results. Sheinbaum, standing at the helm, had the daunting task of translating her promises into tangible improvements for all Mexicans. Section 4. Challenges on the horizon, a divided nation and the shadow of violence. The festive atmosphere in the Zocalo masked a deeper unease. Mexico, deeply divided along political and socio-economic lines, posed a formidable challenge to Sheinbaum's presidency. The jubilant crowd represented only a fraction of the electorate. Many, disillusioned by unfulfilled promises, had chosen to stay home. The deep scars of cartel violence, a persistent plague on the nation, cast a long shadow over Sheinbaum's victory. Despite Obrador's attempts to address the issue, the cartel's grip on power remained firm. Their brutal tactics, often targeting civilians, had instilled a climate of fear in many parts of the country. Sheinbaum, inheriting this bloody legacy, faced an uphill battle. The cartels, with their vast resources and networks, operated with impunity in many regions. The task of dismantling these criminal organizations seemed insurmountable, a problem that had vexed Mexican leaders for decades. The road ahead was fraught with obstacles. Sheinbaum, acutely aware of the challenges, needed to tread carefully. Her ability to unite a divided nation and confront the scourge of cartel violence would determine not only her legacy, but the fate of Mexico itself. Section 5. A call for unity towards a stronger Mexico. Sheinbaum in her address appealed for unity. She called upon all Mexicans, regardless of their political beliefs, to work together. The challenges facing the nation, she argued, could only be overcome through collective effort. Her words, spoken with sincerity, resonated with the crowd. The time for division is over, she declared. The future of Mexico, she emphasized, depended on the ability of its people to bridge their differences and forge a common path. Her message, though simple, carried profound weight. It acknowledged the deep polarization within Mexican society. Sheinbaum's call for unity was not just a political tactic, it was a necessity. The problems facing Mexico, poverty, inequality, violence, were too complex, too deeply rooted, to be solved by one person or one party alone. It required a collective effort, a shared sense of responsibility for the nation's well-being. Her words, echoing through the Zocalo, offered a glimmer of hope. The path ahead would be arduous, but the possibility of a united Mexico, a nation that worked together to overcome its challenges, was a vision worth striving for. It was a vision that Sheinbaum, standing tall on that historic night, seemed determined to realize. Section 6. The weight of history on her shoulders. As the night drew to a close and the crowd began to disperse, a sense of history hung heavy in the air. Sheinbaum, the weight of expectation on her shoulders, stood alone on the stage. The cheers had faded, the fireworks were gone, leaving only the silence of a nation holding its breath. She had made history by becoming Mexico's first female president, but the true measure of her leadership, the legacy she would leave behind, would be determined not by her gender but by her actions. The challenges were immense, the expectations even greater. The world watched with bated breath. Mexico, a nation at a crossroads, held the potential for greatness, but it was a potential yet unrealized, hampered by deep-seated problems. Sheinbaum, armed with her vision and the hopes of millions, had the opportunity to steer Mexico towards a brighter future. The road ahead would be long and arduous. But on that night, in the heart of Mexico City, anything seemed possible. The future, unwritten and uncertain, beckoned, and Claudia Sheinbaum, the newly elected president, stood ready to meet it head-on.